The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our MWF webinar on MWF Pro Wood. For those of you who may not know, MWF Pro Wood is our automated Revit wall, floor, ceiling, and truss framing software for wood. From the software, we can run clash detection, create complete construction documentation like shop drawings and bill of materials. We also export to a variety of different CNC machines or saws. During this webinar, we will show you just that, an overview of MWF. Just a few housekeeping items before I jump into the software. Anyone who is registered for the webinar will be sent a recording after the webinar. Please feel free to share this link. Number two, I would also like to remind everyone that you can ask questions throughout the webinar in the questions tab of the GoToWebinar dashboard. Our technical team will answer your questions as soon as possible. All right, let's jump into our Revit model now. So as you can see, just here, we have a sample of a multifamily wood building that we're going to use for this demo. We're currently in the Revit 2019 version. We do know that 2020 is coming around the corner, and when fully released, we will have our release coming out shortly after that for the 2020 support. Therefore, we'll support back to Revit 2017 as we hold support for the previous 3 versions. So let's get over into a 3D of this model and start going. The very first thing you would do if you were getting a model from someone else, if you're not creating your own models, is you would go up under Settings and click on Load Data. This here will allow you to set up the information that MWF needs to run in general. It will load markers, some families, and load in some project parameters. This is a folder that is stored on your C drive. It can be actually stored anywhere on a network drive. That's why we have the select folder. Right now, I'm just under my data metric, and I had originally it had my LGS because it's alphabetically listed. So I would just select wood and I would click OK. It will just then give you a bunch of information as what it's loading. I'll click Apply All because I already have some loaded in here, and I'm just doing it over top. Now it's saying that it can't load a certain family because one is already existing, so it's skipped, which is fine. I already had them loaded in for my demo. Once those are loaded in, there's a way to check whether you need to load data or not on a project. You can just open up the marker manager, and if you click under openings and look at single, if you see a bunch of markers in here or anything at all in here, you've already loaded your data and you shouldn't have to reload it. That's just a way to quick check. So once your data is loaded, you then have access to all MWF in general. So we'll grab a panel down, a wall down here, which I have some transparencies on just so that we can see what's happening inside the walls. We would go up into our Pro tab. Now I'm in Pro Suite currently, just because of doing the demos. My Pro Suite gives me access to both metal and wood, but we're going to focus strictly on the wood side of things. So I would go up underneath here, and when you first open it, you'll actually see the tab should look something similar. This is the All Modules tab. When I click down to my wall module, it changes just to be for the wall commands. And if I were to go to floors or trusses, the tab changes accordingly for those commands. So we'll go back to wall module. We've got our wall selected. I'm going to click on Create. This is going to open up a first dialog box, which will give me a couple of options on how I would like to create my panel. As you can see, it says upgrading from 2017, so it's upgrading some families. That's how we do the support for previous versions. And it just takes a second. So there we go. In this box, you can get your couple of values that are defaulted right away. The one that we're going to do here is we're just going to click on Template. And under Template, you have disk storage and project storage. Out of the box, I have, like I said again, light gauge and wood because I'm in Pro Suite. You would only see wood here if you had our Pro Wood software. This template is out of the box. It is 38 by 180 by 140, basically a 2x6 at 16 inches on center, which I believe is 400 millimeters, 405. So we're just going to choose this one. We're going to set it as active, and we're going to click create. This is going to give me a quick processing of this wall. If there is any information on here already, for instance, as in we already have in some information for the marker, we'll go and set that up afterwards. So actually it was a 38 by 114 that was in there. My bad, I just created all these things today and was moving them all around. So in the settings you have split bottom tracks. Because we're going to do wood here, we would always have our split horizontals turned on. Go back here and change this to structural center line of wall. I'll show you the reason why we changed that afterwards. As for structural, you'll see there's a start and end offset. We have a minimum cripple length. I'm going to make this a little smaller, say 25. Just this way I can get small cripples if needed. And then under our miscellaneous tab, this is where we have all the rest of the settings available to us for our wall panel. For instance, under studs, you can change your wall spacing of your studs. You can change panel direction. You can override your top or bottom plates. You can do double tops or double bottoms. If we go through back further down, we can do a generic framing of the wall. So right now we're using settings from the openings tab. The next one down here is for rule sets. This is how you bake in the framing for the wall so that if I have window type A, it automatically gives me the framing associated with it. If I had a different type B and it was a different size requiring a different header, you can actually make this rule so that it finds the right framing for it. Under the openings tab, we have options for window, door, and opening. I'm going to check use for all openings right now. Therefore, when I set it up for one, it'll set up for all three types. And then you scroll through the list like the other list, and it has the options available to you as to what you're going to do. If you want to add an extra header, sill, king, or jack, you just choose the member here and click add, and it will add it to the list. The general tab will allow us to use rough dimensions if they're available in the family, meaning that the framing will go up to the RO. If the RO is present, it'll have its tolerances. If the RO is not present, it'll frame right up to the edge of the window family. Further down the list, we have options for structural members, which allows us to change our configuration of our wall. We do have a chase wall option available to you, where you have staggered stud offsets. So say if you had a 6-inch wall that was made by 2x4s and they were staggered, you can use that one. We do have benchmarks available to us, and then in stud configuration, we can do normal, which is a single stud, double studs. Back to back is for a metal. Face to face would be for a metal. Same thing with interlock, and then we have triple studs. Benchmark allows you to choose the benchmark you want to use. There's some other options in there. Extra studs allows you to place a stud anywhere you want in your panel by a set distance. You can override studs, so you can literally choose a vertical stud and where to add it. And then the repeat modify allows you to select individual ones. And I know this is showing metal, but it's just representing the stud, even if it was wood. You can add one to the left, one to the right. I'm not going to add any, just wanted to show you what the dialog looked like. We do have a dialog for horizontals or blocking or nogging. You can choose where to start, where to end, and then the type of member that you would like. This panel is kind of small to show it to you. I'll show you a horizontal on another panel. We do have some bracings, and then we have hole series. So if you were feeding this to one of the 5-axis saws that could cut your holes, you can actually set up holes. Let's say that you wanted a conduit run at 16 inches above the ground. It'll put a hole through each and every member all the way through, and then you can output that to the saw. So once we have all our settings set up for our panel, we'll then go down to the bottom and we'll click template, excuse me, and then this is where you can actually save it. If you save it to the disk, It will save to just this computer and this computer only. So if I was to transfer this file to someone else on my network, they wouldn't be able to see that template. If I go over to project now, this will travel with the project. So if a coworker is working on it and I create a template, they will have access to the template on their machine. So here we do have an option to manage folders. We have an import and export to import from a project or export to another. It saves it as a file anywhere you want located. Mass copy allows you to make duplicates, obviously as a group. So if I had one here that I wanted to select, I could set it as active, and that's how we would choose that template. We have save as, we have update, rename, so you can do all your managing of your templates here. I'm not going to make any saves or changes to this template. We're just going to click close. So I'm going to click OK, and it's going to finish out framing this wall panel. So you can see here we have our studs, we have some framing around the window, and we have a bearing beam at the top of the wall. The bearing beam at the top of the wall is set by a marker that is on this window. And a marker is a term that we use for the information that goes that we can stamp on things. So you'll see here in my marker manager, we have a bunch of different types available to us. To find out the marker that is actually here on the window, you can go under markers, apply opening type, and it'll give it to you here at the top. You can click on the little notepad and then it'll show you the editing of this marker. So for instance, I want to space out my header, my beams, and now they'll actually have a gap between them. So if I click OK and then just accept it, that will actually make that change, but it doesn't change anything until I regenerate. So let's change the marker altogether. Instead of being top of wall, we're going to go to top of window, select it, and then we're going to now use our regenerate tool to regenerate the framing of this panel. You don't have to delete it, you don't have to remove it, it's just a regenerate. So there you can see we have now changed the bearing beam from the top to from the top of the wall to the top of the window. If the window were to be deleted by the architect and you didn't need the window no more, just delete your Revit window, grab any member of the panel, and again use regenerate, and all the framing associated with your window disappears. So it's the window that has the information that is driving the framing. The base template is what gives us this right here that we see right now. Then the marker on the window drives the rest of the framing. So I'll just put it back in to save it for later. Another great thing about the templates that we have allow us to create what we call a template map. This map, as you can see here on the left, you can create multiple maps, you can rename maps, you can delete them, you can export them, and you can import them. This allows you to create, so if I have architect A, and they always use certain names for their walls, I can associate those walls to an actual framing style or template that we have available to us. Or if I need to frame with one spacing on the first floor and I do a second spacing on the second floor, I could have a map that says level 1 with my walls, a map with level 2 with my walls. Now, here's the thing. If the walls are the same as the walls below, you can still use a different map. You just have to turn on the map before you do your quick creating. So now that we've selected our demo map, I'm just going to click OK to set that one current. So I'm going to grab this brick wall here, and I'm going to grab a couple of the walls up here around the little bathroom. I'll grab that guy, and then I will grab this longer wall over here. So these are three distinctly different types of walls. They have different framings, and we can confirm it says there are multiple types up here in the properties. So now that I have them selected, we'll go to our Pro tab. Instead of clicking create and choosing the templates for each walls, I just click quick create. It analyzes the wall, it reads the family, and it looks at the map and says, well, I found wall type A, I need framing type A. It just takes a second here. The longer wall is actually going to separate into 3 individual panels, and I'll show you how we handle the long wall to make it do that automatically once it's generated. So there, I've got there's all my framing and all my walls. You can, again, if I wanted to, I could select all the walls in the project, click frame, it just runs. And if it were to find a wall that didn't have a mapping, it'll actually give you a window that pops up with a red line in it. You can click on the red line, it'll show you the type of the wall that you're looking at, and it'll actually say, I don't have a mapping for this wall. So this longer wall here that we had, if I grab the wall in the right spot, right there, this was a 9-meter long wall. Not many people are going to want to panelize a 9-meter wall. So we had some split markers, and I'll show you those in floor plan, that actually allowed us to create a gap in between our panels, so that we have a little bit of adjustment, and it created 3 individual panels that were INT 120, 121, 122. So if we go and look over at our first floor, you can see I have a dimension string, and I have this little guy right here. This is my split wall marker that defines where my panels start and end. So it frames from the corner to the first marker, and then it starts a new panel from marker to marker, and then it does another panel from marker to end of wall. That's how we handle the walls when there is no sheathing on the wall. It creates them as one piece out of one wall. So if I want to do these with sheathing now, I'm just going to grab each of my panels here from their panel tags, and I'm going to delete these using our delete command. We don't use the actual Revit command, so we'll delete them. And now for the multi-layer side of things, I actually need to break the wall physically, because the sheathing of the panel does not overlap the next sheathing or the next panel. So we will go up under our Pro Suite, we go to markers, and we go wall splitter. And this literally just finds where the markers are and splits the wall accordingly. So there's one piece, there's the second piece of the wall, and then this is a third wall. Well, first things first, we're going to go back to the 3D because I need to define my map for multi-layer. So I just selected the one wall, well, the 3 walls, they're all the same wall, just so that I can see the name of the wall that I would like. I go to my Pro tab. Now I go to the commands that are on the left side. If I click on settings, this is our settings for our multi-layer. You'll see we have a wall type map. We have access to our templates. We have secondary templates, and I'll show you what those are in a moment. We have opening templates, which have to do with the secondary framing. We have sheathing. We're going to actually modify this current template in here, so we're going to copy it, and we're just going to call this one sheathing. This is a good thing to do all the time, is to duplicate any default template that we have in MWF so that you already have your original, and you're always working with a copy. So if I click modify of this one, you can choose the family you want for your sheathing. You can tell it how to handle minimum dimension conditions. These extensions are literally how to extend the sheathing past the top of the panel, the bottom of the panel, the start, or the end. It'll pull all those pieces up or down. We have a label prefix so that you can change the sheathing prefix, and then you can actually define the material, or you can let your Revit wall define the material. You'll notice we only chose the width, or sorry, the size of the panel, whether it's 1200 by 2400, or do I have any of the others? No, not loaded right now. We don't define the thickness because the thickness is pulled out by the thickness of the Revit wall. Under opening settings, we can ignore openings. You can break sheathing panels around openings. So instead of making a C-shaped board, it'll make 3 pieces. Then you can control how it extends or pulls back at a door, at a window, or at an opening. We also have our layout. We have basic tiled, horizontal staggered, and we have vertical staggered. We're just going to use basic tiled for the demonstration today. Then we have the members to align to. I'm going to just check off all the ones where I would like any splits to happen. I want them to happen on any of my majors. I'm not going to use any cripple or any join studs for now. And then your horizontal alignment, if you use sheet dimensions, it literally will give you sheet by sheet, but typically we use framing, That way all the members, all the splits line up on the members. We do have a section for nail line settings. So if you do have a saw or a CNC machine that allows you to indicate nailing, this is where you would do all your settings. So we're just going to click OK, and we've saved that sheathing template. So we're going to go back to the wall type menu. My wall is MWF exterior wall stucco, so I'm just going to do a search for MWF exterior stucco, that one there. And you can see here when I go over each of these, it highlights a different layer of the actual wall. So this one's a little more visual than our other template map. I currently already have my structure and I used the default, but we're going to change this one to the sheathing. And then we're not going to add any other layers up to the top. I'll show you on another wall how to add in the secondaries. So we'll click OK. Now that sets up the quick create for the multi-layer. If I go over under operations now and click quick create, it will now frame these three walls. Even though it's the same wall, it's not looking at the map for any other types of walls, but it already knows how to frame these ones. So we'll just give it a second as it tries to figure everything out. And you will see that these three have now been created. Again, the window is what is driving the framing around the window. If I grab the window, we just go back up under our markers, and you can see that I did have the top of window. Same thing to change it. I could actually just grab it, do top of window, click OK, and then regenerate. Now, instead of using the regenerate here on the right, which is under wall model, we need to go to wall multi-layer, operations, regenerate. And it'll actually ask you on this one, what do you want to regenerate? Do you want to regenerate the layer that you've selected? I typically say regenerate all. This way I can make sure they're all aligned. And there you can see we just changed our framing for that panel. So those are quick multi-layers with just sheathing. This wall down here, we're going to add a diagonal furring to the wall. So I will zoom in on the wall. We're going to use MWF exterior wall stucco. So again, we're going to go back up under our settings. You will search your wall map for this wall, stucco multi-layer dwelling right here. In the list here, you'll see I already have a substrate called wood furring as a secondary layer. So I would just check on this, go to secondary, and choose whatever one I have set up. I'm also going to add a sheathing layer to this one again. So sheathing, click it again, select. So all these ones here on the left are available in my map. If I click on another wall, there's nothing in that one, nothing in that one. And then there's my other exterior one. So you can see it's very similar to the other map, just this one's more graphic. Again, you do have import, export, or creating others. Once you're done with your changes, you click OK. That one is now ready to be framed. We just click quick create, and away we go. So this one is going to give us the framing of the structural core. It's going to give us a sheathing, and then it's going to give us a furring that is at a 45-degree diagonal because maybe they were putting on some siding on it and they needed the extra furring. So there we go. If I zoom in a little bit and grab one of the furrings, you'll just see here that we have our structure, we have our sheathing, and we have our furring right on top. To define that furring, it would have been up here under the settings and our secondary layers, and we'll go to the furring. This is where you have all your options on the left on how you want this to be set up. So I have for openings, and I defined what happens around my openings, and my furring option, I have it rotated so that it is laying flat against my wall. There's where I choose the material. I give it an angle, I give it a first, a last offset, and a spacing, and that actually makes it part of the panel. So if I were to take a shop drawing of this, it will actually be part of the panel and be scheduled appropriately. Speaking of shops, we'll go back to the other side of the building because I have one of each style here, because we have a shop drawing engine on the regular single wall. and we have a shop drawing engine under Multilayer. So if you notice here in the sheets menu, I have a cover and an end sheet. Well, the sheets that I create for my shop drawings will start to show up right here after I select some walls. So we're going to select just this internal wall, and I'm going to select a member of that panel as well, just to show you that you can create shop drawings from two different panels at the exact same time. In the Drawings Manager, this is where you would do your setup, so I'll just open the window to show you. These are all the types of views that you have available to you to place on your sheet. You can predefine the scales, names, and the direction that you're looking at your panel. We do have a section for sub-assemblies, so it would create a different shop drawing and mark it differently if it was a sub-assembly, because the markers have an option to turn them into them. So once all this is set up, these can be imported and exported and duplicated. So I'm just going to close those because I already have it set. I'm going to click on my shop drawings. If this warning here is just letting you know, if you make a change to your panel after the shop drawings are created, it is recommended to rerun the command. That way it refreshes all the views for all the shop drawings. So we're just going to click OK. And here we're going to choose our title block or our option that we want to use. And then it will start to create the two shop drawings for these two panels. You can select 100 panels, you can select 10 panels, you can select one. It'll just run on the ones that are available. The last time I did some wood panels, I believe I did like 150 panels with cleanup. It took about an hour, and even at that, the processing time was like 45 minutes, and then the cleanup time was like another 15. So the shop drawing manager gets you to a point where you can see that things are done pretty quickly. This is because I didn't put in a weight to the wood. We don't specify the weight of the wood because it can change with species, moisture content. So it just lets you know the warning. If you put a weight in that you know, you won't get that warning. So panel 117, here is the shop drawing that came out real quick. I do have a bill of materials with my cut list. I have my floor plan view, and then I have a framing elevation. Now you'll notice that some of these, you know, you can just move it over a little bit and move your name tags down. You can further go into the drawing, and if you didn't like where something was located, you could actually grab your dimension style and move your, you know, your dimensions over. So again, this gets you to a point where you're 95% complete. So if I move this one and this one back over a little bit, you can pretty them up to whoever they need to be. We can look at panel 114. There we go, same idea. You make your small changes and away you go. So those are two examples of the regular shop drawing. If I grab this panel over here, I would go to my shop drawing settings on the left. Now I have the same kind of thing. I have a drawings manager here as well. You can click on this and click edit, and this is where you make your changes here. So again, if you add a new type of view, it's there. And then once they're added, you have the options to be able to go in and make the changes for that individual view, how it's controlled, what is being shown, preferred scale. You can choose your dimension styles, and then you can choose how your labels are. So again, you set that up ahead of time. You can import, export these from project to project. Once they're set up, you can literally just click on shop drawing. Now it says there was an error, and this was because I imported it from another file, so I believe there's a missing text style. It's not one that is going to interfere with my shop drawing, so I'm just going to click create. And again, it'll pop up down here in the bottom saying panel 123. So I think that was the 3D. Yeah, the 3D failed to come out just because of probably the missing the text style. But I have my bill of materials, which is, this one is missing some members for some reason. I just set this up earlier today and it should have been all there. But there's my sheathing. Each piece is labeled. My sheathing tags are on there, so do I have my tags? I'm missing my tag column. So these are actual Revit schedules. If I go over and look at my sheathing schedule here, I'm going to go through and find out if I have my labels. So fields, there's my label. So I believe if I go to appearance formatting, unhide that one. There's the master container. I had the wrong one. Appearance. So we're going to hide that one and we're going to uncheck that one. So again, you can just set these up as it's a Revit schedule. Go back, and if I go back to my floor plan or to my view, there are my actual schedule changes. For the bill of materials, let's see why this filtered out. So you're just going through and setting up whatever needs to set up. I'm not sure why the cripples didn't come through. That would just be something I have to adjust. But again, you get the idea that you have all your information is labeled. If I were to make a change in my drawing, it'll make a change here, and I just regenerate, and away we go. So those are how we quickly create shop drawings. Let's move over now into some of the modular commands that we have available to us. So you see here we have a model group in the Revit project, because groups are great if things are repeatable. If I edit this group, for instance, and take this wall out, just to show you, and if I click finish, it'll take the wall out in all three. So we'll undo that just so that we have it back to where we were starting. Now, the group is contained of doors, windows, and it even has a floor inside of it. Our program will actually just frame the walls. So if I go to Pro Suite and say Quick Create, it will find the walls available to us that we have in that group, and it will frame those walls. The whole point of the groups is you can totally frame out one group, make sure it's 100%, and then you can use our modular tool to say copy on all identical groups, and it will push the framing from the group that you modeled to the other ones that are not modeled. Now, this framing is not part of the group. It's modeled on top of the group. So if I were to make a change or move the group, the framing stays where it is, and I'll show you an example of that. So there's the rest of the framing. If I grab my group, which I have, and if I just move it over, you can see that the walls moved, the framing did not. So it doesn't make it part of the group. We're not trying to use some sort of trickery where we're adding it to the group and then it adds to the others. It actually creates framing that gets individual numbered all the way through. If we go and look now, and my plan got messed up, so we'll grab another one here and we'll just sort that out. Do not crop. Why did I do this? So the floor plans were kind of, it's an older file here. Let's see, second floor. There we go. You'll notice that we have some arrows on here. The arrows are indicating our join conditions. If I take this one out and just click delete, it'll get rid of it. To create a new one, you select your two walls. We'll go up under joins and we'll say place join, and it will give you a category list of what's available to you. So you can just scroll through your list and see how you want your wall to be framed at the corner. So I like this one. I'll click OK. It will place the marker down. So now if I click Quick Create on these two walls, I will get a proper framed corner for this condition, as so. If I didn't want the one wall to be the main wall, which is the direction of the arrow, you can select the arrow, go under joins and say set main wall, choose the other wall. It'll rotate the join and it will regen the walls so that the join corner is complete and proper again. These can be automated by placement as well, so you can select a bunch of walls and have them join all at those available conditions. So we'll go into now, we'll show a little bit of our MEP Clash. So I'm going to rotate this around and I'm going to add a transparency to two walls here just so we can see what's going on inside. Bear with me. So there we go, they're transparent. I'm gonna quick create on the two walls. I'm gonna use a shortcut. It's set up called QC. You can set up your shortcuts any way that you like, just through the regular view tab, view, and then you have user interface, and you can do keyboard shortcuts. So we have those available to you. The first wall, you'll see here, there's a line here, and there's a line through the wall here. These lines are called marker lines. I have it set up to be able to add those holes. If I change this line in any shape or form, shorten it, lengthen it, change the slope, grab the panel afterwards and use my regenerate, only wherever that line crosses any of the members will I get holes. This is one way of producing the holes. You'll see here the hole though is perpendicular to the wood member. In the next release, we have made a change to this so that that hole would actually be drilled on the angle, because the machines can do it. Because I wouldn't want to run a pipe diagonally through a wall, but someone might want to do it. So that's one way of creating the holes. The other way that we have is through our Clash detect. So I will just hide an element here. We'll go in and we'll actually grab a part of the panel. And under our Pro tab, we'll go down to our whole series mapping. I'm going to uncheck the items that I'm not worried about, and I want to see my pipes. So we're going to create and choose the hole for our pipe. Then we go up and we do our Clash definition. So we're going to click add and we're going to give it a name. You can set up a bunch of these depending on what you're doing. Again, we're going to uncheck that we're not looking at the pipes. I'm going to check the pipe type that I want to do, and then I'm going to select all for every member that I want to be able to cut this hole in. Click OK, and then you can OK again. Here you can see that these are importable and exportable. The last step is you go up under interference and you actually click MEP Clash. It'll then ask you which operation you want to do. I'm going to click OK, and it's going to give me my holes in my wall panel wherever that pipe was in place. Now, for instance here, if this pipe were to move, so if I change this pipe to say 600, the pipe will move up. You'll notice the holes did not move. What you would do is you would actually go in and you could say up to interference, you go to remove existing holes, click OK, all the holes are gone, and then you just grab a member again and rerun the MEP Clash. The reason why we do this is if someone were modeling and you were modeling and they were working in MEP and you were working in the framing, you might have to sit here and wait for changes that they've done to affect your panel. So this way we're forcing the user to know when things have moved to create the change. So those are for in-wall collisions. I'm going to remove these now just for fun. So we're going to remove existing, and I'm going to show you a through-wall collision. Up here at the top, we have a fan duct that needs to be framed around this wall panel. So I'm going to grab my wall panel, and I'm also going to grab my duct. I'm going to go up under my interference tab, and there's the Clash detection. This one works by a rule set that determines that if something is this size, it needs to be broken down and framed around with these tolerances. So that's already set in my rule. I'm just going to click OK, and this is going to punch a hole. Of course, there's no elements found because I have the panel and not the wall. First, you need to affect the wall with the MEP element. So we'll go Clash detect, and this is going to happen really quick. It's going to punch a wall opening in my Revit wall. Now I grab a member of the stud and just click regenerate, and I'll get my framing around this penetration. Now I'm still missing verticals and a cripple. That is because in the properties of this panel, my minimum cripple length was set to 1 foot. I'm going to set it to 25 millimeters, and then regenerate the panel, and then you'll see I'll get my cripple and my 2 studs on the side. So you can see it's been framed around, and we've even given it a tolerance in case things shifted a little bit. So that's through wall penetrations. They're great. They're easy to use. If again this were to move, the opening doesn't move with it. Over into so that's a bit about the walls. The big features are all in the walls, but we also do have floors available to us to be able to use. You'll see here that I had things isolated, and because we framed, some of the framing comes back out, which is fine. We're going to just go into our floors here. I've got a floor selection here. I'm going to go back up to Pro, come down to my floor module so it changes my commands. Again, we have a template manager where you can create templates for your floors. The first thing you would do is you'd click on Create, and this analyzes the floor and it puts in a label and a gimbal. So I'm going to use joists on this one. So there is the original floor layout, and then it just gives me where my floor boundaries are. Once it's created, if I just click regenerate, because I have the template already set up, it will finish off the framing and give me all my joists in. Now, if I hide the floor, you'll see the little arrows here. If I rotate these arrows, say 45 degrees, and then I regenerate my panel, all my joists are now going to be rotated 45 degrees as well. So instead of going through the properties and doing my joist rotation, I can do it just by the arrows. Now, this floor is a little large, and we might want to break up this floor into smaller portions to be able to do framing. Instead of using the edit boundary and then moving my line and putting new lines in and copying, yes, I want to discard these edits. We actually have what we call a floor cutter. So the first part that we need to make the floor cutter work is we need a model line. We're going to grab a model line here. We're just going to pick the level for the floor. And then I'm going to go draw a line in, and I'm going to draw a line basically from this corner through. And the line can be anywhere. And then you grab the line and the floor, and we'll go back to our Pro tab and click Floor Cutter. This will then ask you, what do you want to do with the original floor? Well, I want to delete the original piece, and I want to replace it with the same floor, but one on each side. So I'll click OK. And now I have, of course, because it's isolated, I should have my floor here. Why did it not give me my floor? Sorry, that just messed up on me there. I don't know why, but we'll go back and see if we can get this to come back out again. It worked for me when I did the pre-demo. So floor here, is there nothing in here for groups? No. It should have split the floor 100%. Let's try it again. Floor cutter. This time I'll try not to delete just to see if what it's going to do. So there's my original. See here, I think I did hide by category. No, so I'm not sure why the floor cutter bogged out on me, but it would have split the floor into two pieces, one on each side. What I was going to show you, the next part of that floor, was how we can do sheathing. So I'll just use it on this panel here. I will go up and I will click delete to get rid of my panel, and I will put in a new template with floor sheathing. Delete panel. Grab the panel, and we'll go back up under create, and I have a pattern or a template that already had sheathing in it. So we'll grab one that says sheath, and I'm going to click on frame it now. This will save me the one step of doing the creation of the regeneration portion. So there's the framing, and then if I hide the floor, you can see I have layers of sheathing defined already on my floor cassette. So floors work very similar to the way that walls do. And again, don't know why that guy deleted. So that's a little bit of the floors and the walls. We do trusses as well. Let me see if I can grab, where's my garage? So here is the garage that we have. I'll quickly just show you a real short introduction to the roofs trusses. So we're going to switch over to our truss module, grab my roof, and then I will click create. It's going to ask me to choose my supports. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to use this wall and this wall. Click finish. I'm not going to set an overlever cantilever offset. Then it's going to ask me where do I want to start my trusses. So I'm going to start right there, and then I'm going to end some trusses right about there. I'm going to give a spacing just for sake of this to make it run a little quicker of 4 feet, and then we'll click OK. And it's going to give me what we call an envelope for these trusses. If I grab 2 of the envelopes and isolate them, element, you can see that they actually are different because this one was further down where the roof started to go down. So all these are is a group of model lines. You can actually edit this group. You can actually change these model lines whichever way that you like, so that if you needed to create an oddball truss, you can actually just draw it. I'm not going to edit it, but if I grab that truss now, go back to Pro, and click on create again, it will bring me into the truss designer. So you have the option to choose your settings. We'll put it into millimeters. We're going to do a wood truss. You have your options for your webbing. You have your options for your member sizes. You can choose your family, so I'll choose my dimensional lumber family. Right now, because the 38 by 89 is the top of my list, it's going to make all my members 38 by 89, and then you can choose, again, your cord, your webbing, and you can choose your heels. You can actually copy the list, paste the list, and apply to all. You have your physical member properties, and then you have your designer preferences. So if I click OK, this will bring me over to the actual truss designer. I'm just going to click here on generate web. It'll automatically web it. If I don't like where this one is, we'll just flip it. Say I don't like that one there, we can delete it. Once you're fine with how this is set up, you'll just click OK, and it will give you a representation of the truss available to you in your model. We have no engineering in our wood trusses, so this is a representation that you can give to an engineer for them to analyze, and then they can get the information back to you, and then you can go back into here and modify the truss accordingly to the information they gave you so that your drawings were correct. So that's just a quick example of our trusses. In the roof trusses available to you as well, we can do commons, valleys, hips. You can do hip, ridge back. You can do hip end, where you would choose your 3 supports. You choose your hips, and it would actually create all the profiles automatically for you. We have some great videos online on our YouTube page, as well as in our MWF user group on LinkedIn. Those are some great resources for you. So now that we've given you a little bit of the tour of MWF, I'd like to thank you for taking part in today's webinar. If you'd like more information on MWF, we highly encourage you to take a look at our online products, as well as if you would like to reach out to any one of us, you can set up a one-on-one demo with any member of our technical team. Our technicians will be able to take you through how you build and how MWF as well as our CNC modules can benefit your next project. I've included our info email here on the screen so that you can get in touch with us. Just send us an email, let us know what you're looking for, and then we can get that all set up for you. So once again, hopefully you have a great day, and thank you for attending today's webinar.